First off, thank you for being with me on this call. Really appreciate it. Look forward to documenting your story. The first thing that I would like to ask, if I may, is what prompted you to join the Navy, and what made you decide that the military was the route that you wanted to go?
Well, in high school, six of us got together right out of high school, and we signed up for the Navy.
Okay. Were you guys close friends at that point?
Yes, six of us from high school. We all graduated together.
Gotcha. And did you have plans to join the Navy when you were younger, or was this kind of their idea, or was this your idea?
Well, it was all our ideas. Uh, it seemed like I had my grandfather, my father was in the Army, and your brother was in the Marine Corps, so I picked the Navy.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. And was it when you went to basic training? What were your expectations, and what were your main takeaways from that experience?
Well, it was an exciting experience, you know. We didn't know what the hell was going to happen to us, you know. So anyway, it was a little threatening to us when we just signed up, but we all stuck together.
Very good, very good. And so after your basic training, you went to a specialty school. Is that kind of how that worked?
No, I did it backwards.
Okay.
I was recommended for the Seabees because out of high school, 2 summers before we graduated, I worked in construction, you know, running equipment and foundations, building, and stuff like that. So I was surprised when I was picked to go in. I was picked to go in the Seabees construction battalion, but my aptitude was so high that they sent me to up to Newport aboard a ship. 3 a.m. in the morning, I got on the ship.
Wow. And what was your job assignment that they placed you in?
Well, the officer of the deck at that time, like I say, I didn't know shit from Shinola. So anyway, the officer of deck said, "Look, you guys go down in the aft compartment. I'll have this guy guide you down there and find an empty back and catch a few hours sleep because we're going to get underway in the morning." So that's what we did. And I stayed down in the compartment for almost a week before a guy came in the room and started, you know, the compartment we were in, and said, "McEvoy, who's McEvoy?" And I said, "I am." He says, "Come on with me." I said, "Where are we going?" And he says, "To the IC room." And I says, "What's the IC room?" And he says, "You'll find out." So that's how I got selected for the IC room.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. What is the IC room?
Intercommunications, electrician, everything on the ship, even the gyro compass that directs the guns and everything, was controlled by the IC department. And there was Benny Cochran and Bob Sola. Benny Cochran was a career Navy man. He was first class. And Bob Sola was his second class.
Got it. Thank you for that. And so that sounds like a pretty big responsibility compared to some other jobs in the Navy.
Oh yeah, damn right. Directed all the guns and everything. And the communications aboard the ship, sound powered, phone, MCs, which spoke to every compartment, you know.
Yes.
But
And yes.
I did my training backwards. After I came back from Korea, you know, they said, you're going to IC school. And I said, you know, I already qualified I was third class by that time. I had one stripe, third class.
Mm-hmm.
So that put me in trouble, right? When I got up to Great Lakes, I got in with a chief warrant officer. And because he said, the first thing he said to me, I don't know why the hell you're here, because I've been trying to get go to Korea. And I said, well, I was already in Korea. And I did it backwards, you know. And from that day forward, he disliked me.
I see.
It was a pain in the ass, you know. He says, I've been trying to do it for years, and you do it backwards, you know. So he was like my enemy now.
I gotcha. So, and that guy was actually the instructor of the course.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so you attended that course. How long was that?
That was 12 weeks, I believe.
Oh wow. So that's a pretty long time. So I mean, how was that 12 weeks? That being said, with him like you said, you became enemies. Did it go any further than that, or was it just kind of like a dislike at that point?
Well, like I say, I wasn't his enemy. He was my enemy, you know.
I gotcha.
And I stuck it out. But he gave me every time I took a test or something, he'd scrutinize my test and give me a bad mark, you know.
Gotcha.
But I got through that.
Gotcha. And then so essentially you jumped on ship right away. How many countries did you visit? How was that experience?
The first trip was around the world. And we got in Korea. We left Newport that morning on our way, and I was still in the compartment, you know, cleaning and everything. I wasn't called to the ice-cream room yet, but we got underway, and we went down through the Panama Canal. We went to San Diego. We went to Midway Island and on to Yokosuka, Japan.
Wow.
And that was we stayed in Yokosuka for about 3 days till we got orders, you know, where we were going to go and what we were going to, how we were going to fight the gooks.
I see. How was that experience? I mean, had you ever left New Jersey at that point? Was that your first time traveling like that?
That was my first time. Yeah.
So that must have been a very exciting experience, I'm assuming. Is there any stories in particular that you recollect? Any specific memories that you recall from those trips?
Oh, I remember all the trips.
Yeah.
You know, we went to Midway and we had a swim call there, and refueled, and then Yokosuka, and we spent till the end of the Korean War. Then we went from there to Philippines, Subic, Philippines. Then we went across to India and across to through the Mediterranean, and went back home. We stopped in a couple couple of ports, Naples, and a port in the Suez Canal, Subic Bay, Philippines. So it was it was an exciting trip.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Yeah, it sounds like it. So just to recap, I mean, essentially, right out, during high school, you and six guys total. You and your friends kind of decided that you wanted to join the military. You decided to do it together. You described boot camp as an exciting experience, and then from there, instead of getting trained, you went directly, pretty much on a ship after that. Is that correct up to that point?
That's right.
Okay, and then you actually had a contract to be a construction. To be a
CB.
to be a CB in the yes to be a CB assigned to a construction battalion. However, your ASFAB was very high. They decided to place you elsewhere, which ended up being the IC room once you got on ship, and you just happened to show up, and then they were underway the next day, and you kind of learned on the job how to perform those tasks.
That's right.
Wow. So it's like you said, you did it backwards. That's pretty. So when you got to school, they were supposed to teach you how to do your job, but you had already been doing it, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and that's kind of funny. The instructor was kind of jealous that you already had that deployment experience, and that deployment included the Panama Canal, San Diego, Midway Island, you said, Japan, Subic Bay, India, Naples, Philippines. That's a pretty robust amount of countries.
Yeah, we went around the world, circumnavigated the world.
Very good. And how old were you at that time?
How old was I? 18.
18. So 18, you've been around the world. You come back to the States. Yeah, so school must have been a challenge with that guy because he's jealous of you and he's trying to teach you how to do your job that you've already done around the world.
Yes, he was. He was a warrant officer.
Wow.
In the Navy, so he was way up there, but he resented me.
I see. So and the school was 3 months. Or 12 weeks. There's roughly 3 months. It's a pretty long time. After that, were you assigned to a ship again at that point?
I was sent right back to the Caperton, the same ship. And the day I went aboard, Bob Sola and Benny Cochran were waiting for the launch. They were just getting discharged. So I was the top gun then in the IC room.
I see.
So they gave me two strikers, Neil Kepner and I'm trying to think of the other guy's name. But I was in charge of the whole IC room. We were in the R division, repair.
Gotcha. Wow. So that's pretty interesting. It's like, the first time you show up, the ship's leaving the next day. The second time you show up, the two guys that trained you, they're actually getting out, and you're the one that's kind of the top dog in charge now.
That was it.
Wow. How did you feel being in that position of high responsibility like that?
Well, I was familiar with the IC room. I studied when I first went down to the IC room, and this was a good thing that Benny Cochran told me to do. He says, I want you to sit in front of this switchboard. And some of it was a live switchboard with live switches, and some were fuse protected. And he says, I want you to memorize this board. And I didn't know why the hell he was doing this, but I understood when we went to general quarters, all of a sudden the lights would go out and stuff like that, and they would simulate the ship underway and getting just the shadows and everything. And during that time, we had to transfer switches and everything. And that's why Benny Cochran told me to memorize the board.
Gotcha. Sounds like that was the right thing to do.
Yeah. Benny was a good guy. Bob Sola, Benny Cochran used to stand watches for Bob Sola because Bob was from Long Island, and every weekend Benny used to take his duties so Bob could go down to Long Island and visit his family.
Gotcha. Now got you on that. So you were back on ship, the top person in charge of the IC room at this time.
Yeah.
Where did you guys go from there?
Where did we go?
Yeah, you were on the ship. Did the ship go somewhere?
Oh yeah, I went to Northern Europe cruise. This is a separate cruise.
Okay.
We went down to Guayaquil, Ecuador, right through the Panama Canal again to Guayaquil, Ecuador, because their Independence Day in Guayaquil, Ecuador, is the same as ours, 4th of July. So we spent time there. The next cruise, I went to Northern Europe. I started in Norvik, Norway, above the Arctic Circle, and that made me I think they called it a blue nose. They gave you a certificate for that. So I was a shellback already, and I was a blue nose. And then we came down the western side of Europe and stopped in Bremerhaven, Germany. We stopped in I forget all the ports, but all the way down the coastline, we would go in and get refueled. And when we left Norvik, Norway, the guys that were running the ship made a bad. We were riding along the side of all big boulders, and they gave left rudder, and we climbed the seawall with the one screw. So we came all the way down the west coast with a damaged screw, and we went into Gibraltar, and they put us in dry dock and changed the screw, which was about, I'd say, as high as about 50 feet high and round, So we had to stay there for a while they changed the screw.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. So just to feed that back to you, make sure I got that correct. Essentially, the second trip was to it was a Northern European cruise. You earned an Arctic ribbon for that?
Yeah.
Something like that? Okay. And then essentially the next spot, this trip included Germany. You guys were kind of going down the coastline. The ship became damaged essentially, and you dry docked. You said in Gibraltar, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Rock of Gibraltar.
Okay, very good. The Rock of Gibraltar. If I'm not too familiar with that. Did you guys get liberty at that place?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay.
Once we were in dry dock, we could leave the ship. Everybody had liberty because they called them the Yardbirds, replaced the screw.
Got it. Very good. And then, okay, very good. So you guys got pretty much repaired, and then where'd you guys take off from there?
Navy picture that hangs on the wall. You know.
Oh yeah.
I got that. We were in Cannes, France, with the hierarchy, you know, the rich people, and I was what's his name? One of the Earl Flynn. His sailboat was in Cannes, France, and it was so cold. I was on shore patrol there one night, and these guys were coming in with wood, you know, to put in the potbelly stove just to keep warm. The next day we found out that they were breaking up one of the sailboat's pieces and stuff like that. So that they got in trouble for that, you know. Yeah. The Navy had to pay for all the damage they did. So we had all kinds of experiences.
No kidding. No kidding. Wow. So, got you on that. So, at this point, you're pretty much midway to the tail end of your enlistment, right? You had, how long was your enlistment? 4 years?
Yeah.
Okay. At this point, what were your thoughts and feelings about re-enlisting or starting a new life back in the States? I mean, where was your mind at this point?
Well, the launch that brought when Bob Soul and Ben Cochran, the yeoman came. The yeoman's office was right across from the IC department, and he came in and says, "Mac, you made second class, you know," and he says, "Why don't you ship over? You'll be a chief in a couple of years, and make a career out of it." But then I was in love then, you know, with your grandmom, and I said, "No, I'm getting the hell out." So, yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Yeah, because you met Granny back, you said back in like the 8th, 9th grade. Is that right?
Yeah, 9th grade.
Okay. Yeah, so that's like early high school. And then how did something just came to my mind. How did she feel when you told her you were joining the Navy?
Well, I had already signed up, so she knew we weren't dating or anything.
Okay.
We were just mutual friends at that time.
Gotcha. And then through your enlistment, is that when y'all became closer?
Yeah.
I see. Okay. I gotcha. And gotcha for that. So they pretty much said, "Hey, look, man, you can why don't you go ahead, sign these papers, we get you promoted." You were just like, "Hey, look, appreciate it, but I'm not having it," essentially.
You know, I was in love at that time.
Yeah.
So I left.
Gotcha. Other than that, I mean, would you have stayed? I mean, or did you feel like you could, aside from that, do you feel like you wanted to do other things as well?
Yeah, well, I wasn't interested in staying, making a career out of the Navy.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty good story so far. I mean, so you went in what, like 1950? What year did you enlist?
1952, the summer.
Okay.
Summer of 52.
Summer of 52, and then you were discharged in 56?
Yeah.
Okay. And then my father was born in December of that year.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Very good. And at what point did you decide that being an electrician was the path that you wanted to take?
Well, I had all the training, and when I got out of the service, I went down to the office and signed up for to become an electrician in New Brunswick, and it took me a year and a half before they accepted me. And the only reason I got accepted, there was a chief petty officer. He was a chief in the Navy, petty officer, and he didn't even know. The IC gang was not during his time, but it was a new rate. And I explained it to him, and he says, "Okay, I think we're going to accept you as an apprentice." And it took me about a year and a half to become accepted. And I had to go through. Had to go through all the basic stuff again that during the school for the electricians.
Gotcha. Very good. Thank you for sharing that. So, wow. So, I mean, essentially, it sounds like you kind of set yourself up for success to a degree. I mean, you made a decision at a young age to, join the military. You were trained in, what you were trained in was essentially, being an electrician, and you kind of use that to become successful in a civilian career.
Yep, that's it.
Yes, very good. And it just so happens that Chief Petty Officer was making the decisions who gets accepted to the school, and lo and behold, he was like, hey, this guy was in the Navy. Let's go ahead and bring him on.
That's why I got accepted.
Very good. Perfect. Wow. So, I got to ask you this: How was that transition coming back to the States, and after those young years serving on active duty military, being on ships? How was that transition for you coming back?
Oh, it was easy. We came back. We went to Philadelphia Navy Yards. We pulled in there, and your grandmom was there with my mother and father, and they welcomed us back to, in the States.
Wow, very good. And then from there, you guys went back to New Jersey, and at that point, were you thinking, look, this is gonna be my career, this is how I'm gonna, start a family and support them is through this career? That's kind of what your mind frame was at that point?
Yeah, I wanted to leave the Navy then.
Yeah, gotcha. Very good. Well, we pretty much covered a lot. I mean, thank you for sharing that information. I mean, you essentially, we went from, hey, look, I'm a kid in high school with, talking to some buddies. We decided to go in. We went from there to, hey, I'm out. I've had real world experience traveling the world, being essentially responsible for the operation of this whole entire ship. And then, hey, look, I'm done with this. I want to start a family. I'm gonna go ahead and branch out, start a new career as an electrician. So that's quite a bit of life that we covered. I appreciate you sharing that with us.